Good morning, everyone. Sorry to give you up so early in the morning on 11 a.m., but here we are. We're happy to be here. We're super excited because Dr. Lynne Kitei is here, and she's going to tell us what she wants to tell us about Phoenix Lights happenings and the upcoming Phoenix Light Festival next month, which is super exciting. And it's always good to have Lynne here. I've been watching her videos and interviews for years, and it's good to have you here, Lynne.
Well, it's a pleasure to be with both of you. Thank you, Lala and Bob, for uh, really letting us share not only the most witnessed, the most documented, the most important mass anomalous sighting in modern history, if not all of history, but we also have another event coming up on March 16th at the Arizona Heritage Center. It's the first year we're doing this. We've been doing our event. I host an event every year to actually offer the community an educational forum where they can come and see our award-winning documentary, The Phoenix Lights, We Are Not Alone documentary, Beyond Top Secret, as well as speakers. And this year, we are so honored to have Travis Walton and Britt Elders, who is an icon in the UFO field, as well as Navajo Ranger John Dover. And there's a lot going on the Navajo Range, and it's amazing that we have rangers that are actually taking this seriously and studying it and following up with sightings. As well as the witnesses themselves to March 13th, 1997, when thousands of people were looking skyward for a glimpse of the Hale-Bopp comet, when they also caught a glimpse. And most people don't know this. That's why I really felt obliged to come forward as an educator of vital health issues for the last 50 years. But this vital issue is so important that people know the facts and then they can decide for themselves. But on March 13th, while thousands of people were looking up at the sky purposely for a glimpse of the Hale-Bopp comet, they also caught a glimpse of 1 to 8 mile wide, if you can believe that. Peter Davenport, the director of the National UFO Reporting Center, has received hundreds and hundreds of thousands of reports through the years. It's 28 years later. And he announced a few years ago that one of these objects was hi one of these objects was 8 miles wide. So there's a lot to this story, and I look forward to delving into it with you guys and your audience as well. And by the way, for anybody that's interested in the Phoenix area, the Arizona Heritage Center is at Papago Park, which is right near ASU in Tempe. And it is a fabulous museum. And now they have a Phoenix Lights exhibit that was built by MUFON, Mutual UFO Network. So they get a double treat. Our wonderful event that has a documentary and speakers and Q&A. People don't want to leave, and book signing. It's really an experience, as well as the Phoenix Lights exhibit. So please go on the Phoenix Lights Network website, thephoenixlights.net, to the homepage. The link to ticket Stripe is there, or the events page, and please join us. Tickets are limited, but there's still some available, and we're sold out every year. So want to get that out there for your audience, if there's anyone in the area that would like to visit. But would you like me to start telling you about the Phoenix Lights?
Please tell us about the Phoenix Light. We're here for you. What's that?
Real quick, my friend Mercedes, she has a really popular show.
She's our
She
friend.
loves you, and she's in the chat now. She would love if you come on her show sometime too. So I'm just throwing it out.
And she lives in Arizona.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Well, get in touch with me. You can get in touch with me through the website, right on top, contact. And I always welcome people. It's so important that people get this out in the open, and we address it and accept it and study it so we can find out not only who's driving these things, but move forward in our own evolution. And when someone has a paranormal experience, like the Phoenix Lights, it's real to them. And we've actually, guys, been doing a study. I thought it was really important. In my book, I go into how it affected the witnesses at a very, very deep, powerful level changed people's lives forever. But now we're really documenting it scientifically. So anyone that did see the mass sighting on March 13th, 1997, or something similar to the Phoenix Lights, which I'm going to be describing as these orbs that people have seen, and also craft. If you go on the GAP page, GAP, Geospatial Animation Project, we're going to be discussing that. There's a 12-year study where hundreds of people participated. 2 or more people had to see the same craft. So we're talking about a lot of stuff. There was 10 different crafts. One craft that could morph, or the perspective from where the person was standing, or a parade. And ultimately, that's what the investigators, after 12 years of meticulous study, concluded, because it wasn't just 1 or 2 events, as you would hear in the media. It was many events of these orbs and craft in different areas at the same time, and not only over Arizona. It was over at least 4 different states, and it wasn't just a couple hours. Actually, the mass sightings started at 3 p.m. in the afternoon, daylight sightings in Arizona. 5:30, there were Native Americans seeing it in New Mexico. The 8 o'clock hour, 7 to actually on in California. The 10, 11 o'clock hour, there were 2 commercial airline pilots that called in, that contacted me after years. They were really nervous to contact me, but finally did. And I was so glad they did, because they described one of these crafts covered Las Vegas. And there's a whole story to that if we have time. And then the mass sighting continued until 5:30 the next morning, when a Boeing crew was coming into Sky Harbor International Airport, and one of these craft was hovering over their tarmac. So there is so much more to the story. And after 7 years of anonymity, after thousands of people saw what I had been seeing for 2 years prior, we're going to get into that. I actually pushed my medical career aside to accomplish medical career. It was really that impactful for me personally, because I saw them up close and personal. Ended up with a 750-page journal of such incredibly credible data from all over the world, the history of these things that have been happening for centuries, and squeezed down the first book to 230 pages, came forward in 2004, and it's now in its 4th print. And it's available at Amazon.com and Barnes & Noble, but you can get the link on our website, Phoenix Lights Network website as well. So if we want to start the story, I'm happy to delve in.
I want to make one comment. It is shocking to me, Lynn, shocking to me that we had proof, not just disclosure, proof by hundreds of thousands of people all over the desert Southwest in 1997, and we're still trying to get the government to say, yeah, they're real. Okay, so it's just, and you have been inspirational in your dedication to getting this story out and studying it. And for me and Lala and the entire community of people that are interested in this, we thank you and we owe you. Please continue.
Well, it is a labor of love, I have to say, because there is so much to the story when you know how it affected people at such a deep level. And I should say here that there has not been one, can't speak about other things, but I can about the Phoenix Lights phenomena that are happening worldwide. In our study, if you go onto the landing page on the Phoenix Lights Network website, you'll see a triangle, and then underneath you can enter the website, and under that is the link to our study that we've been doing for 2.5 years. We have over 2,000 people worldwide that have seen similar phenomena, and how it affected them at such a deep level is so important. So if we have time, we'll get into that. But just for anybody that again doesn't know about the Phoenix Lights,
you need to relax. You need to relax. We have all the time you need. Tell all of the story. We are yours for the day.
Well, thank you guys, because I could talk for hours, but I'm going to try to condense as much as I can, and stop me because I get very passionate. I admit it, because it's the data is just so mind-boggling. If we want to show the PowerPoint, we can get into that a little bit so people can see the pictures head on. And by the way, again, their photo page on the Phoenix Lights Network website, if you want to take a close look at these pictures, they're there, and you can examine them. And they've been analyzed by military and university optical experts, because I wanted answers. That's why it took me so long. And 7 years later, nobody could give me an answer. I mean, these are true unknowns. If we want to go to the next slide, yeah, I mean, this is the real inside story. If people haven't seen me, speak or read the book, I mean, there's so much mis and disinformation out there. So I'm glad that I can share, and thank you for letting me share to your audience the real facts, and then you can decide for yourself. By the way, that picture, the three objects on the top, I took that picture 1 month after 9/11. There's a story to that I tell in the book as well. But that picture alone of those three objects, what are they? I would love somebody to tell me what they are. And if you go on our photo page on the Phoenix Lights Network website and scroll to the bottom, Colonel Wendell Stevens, who is no longer with us, and I actually were asked to do an exhibit at the anthropology department at Arizona State University, and they enlarged my pictures, including this one, and which is also on the cover of the book. And he was like aghast. He says, "Oh my gosh! I mean, there is a picture that he had from 1960 in Italy of daylight discs that look exactly like these that were taken at night." So, again, decide for yourself. If we want to go to the next one, this is a joke that somebody printed years ago. And, if you read that, I mean, people were starting to realize the Phoenix Lights now, it has exploded. In fact, they're even asking about it at the UFO congressional hearings, which is exciting, as one of the most not only famous but credible mass sightings. This is not a joke, okay? It's not a joke, especially for people that saw it. There hasn't been one report of harm, threat, or abduction associated with the Phoenix Lights. If anything, it was the opposite. People were in awe and in wonder, and so many cars pulled over. It was a life-changing experience, and we're documenting that and verifying it and confirming it in our study itself. If we want to go to the next one. Next slide. Okay. Unfortunately, we can't play it here, but this is a slide from that I found that shows that this is really, the Phoenix Lights have really seeped in to pop culture. This is a little clip from Spider-Man, where they talk about the lights over Phoenix. Next one. Thank you.
Yeah, Tom's a great actor, and he did great in that role.
Oh yeah, he was terrific. But it's so neat that it's really seeping into pop culture as well as into the consciousness of people worldwide that have either heard about the Phoenix Lights or actually saw something similar. Now, I use this because we live mountainside in Paradise Valley, pretty high on the mount, and are so fortunate and blessed to have a panoramic view of the city skyline. So we know what planes and helicopters and streetlights and car lights look like. What I wanted to do was show others that, and again, this is on the photo page on the Phoenix Lights Network website, so you can examine it. This is the topography from our view. And if you look on the bottom left, I don't know if you can see my arrow. Can you see my arrow? No?
But
there you go. On the bottom left there, that's a car on the road. And the lights reflect onto the road. Very different from the true unknowns, where the light is self-contained. It's an orb. The light doesn't extend outside the edge. So I wanted to show people the difference. To the right of that car, you can see a stream of skylights in a house. There's white skylights over there. You see that? Okay. That's significant because you will see, which I noticed after the mass sighting, that if you look straight up, you're going to see two mountain ranges. One is South Mountain on the left, and the other, a few miles back, are the Estrella Mountain range. Now, little story for you, because I don't believe in coincidence anymore. 6 months before the mass sighting, I was invited to present my substance abuse prevention education program at the Gila Bend, Gila, Gila Bend Indian Reservation that is in the basin in between those two mountain ranges. They have one schoolhouse, and I got friendly with the principal. They didn't talk to outsiders, but I helped them out. And this was 6 months before the mass sighting. After the mass sighting, I noticed that these lights kept popping up in that area right where South Mountain and the Estrellas intersect. So I called him up and I asked, I said, did anybody see strange lights on March 13th? And he started to giggle. And I said, is that funny? And he said, are you kidding? We've been looking up at them for centuries. We call them sky people, light beings. I had no idea. That was the first I ever heard of it. And not only, you're shaking your head, but you've heard about it, Bob. Not only have native cultures worldwide are so open to these phenomena. In fact, the Hopi right here in Arizona have protocols to invite these phenomena, and they believe these orbs, many of them believe that these orbs are ancestors or spirit world coming to give them guidance and comfort and knowledge and inspiration. And I have to admit, I've certainly been inspired by these phenomena. But at any rate, he said that's how the Estrellas got its name. It means star in Spanish. And the Spaniards of the day either heard the lore or they saw these phenomena and named the mountain the Estrella Mountains, gateway to the stars. There's also petroglyphs up there. There's a young fella, Jeff, who goes up there and has wonderful pictures of petroglyphs, as well as the fact they believe that there is a portal or gateway in that area. And if you look at my pictures in science, we look for repeatability, right? Right, Bob?
Yep.
And if you look at my pictures over and over again, these phenomena keep popping up right in that area where South Mountain and the Estrellas intersect, close to the airport, which I'm going to get into, Sky Harbor International Airport. So I don't know, is there a portal or a gateway there? Anyway, 2 years before the mass sighting, and this is where the story really began for me personally about the Phoenix Lights. It was the eve of my birthday. Again, I don't believe in coincidence, but it was February 6th. My birthday is February 7th. And one wall of our bedroom is a window. So anything that pops up out there, whether it's fire in the distance or a dust storm or planes coming in and out of Sky Harbor, which we were very used to, we get to see. And my husband and I, both physicians, for many years, both healthy skeptics. One must be open to anybody that walks through the door, but healthy skeptics. And I happened to be taking a leisurely bath in the next room, and he was standing at the window talking to my mother-in-law, who had called to wish me a happy birthday from Philadelphia, where we're both born and raised. And he was on several state and hospital medical boards. Nothing ever ruffled his feathers. And suddenly he sounded alarmed. He says, Lynn, get over here quick. What the hell is that? And I grabbed my towel, wringing wet, run to the window. And we're really high on the mountain, okay? It's also gated, and we're nestled in the mountain range. It's a no-fly zone, so there is no way, and I'm talking zero, that it was military. But a little below us, about 50, 75 feet off the desert floor, which was very treacherous. No one should have been there, and it was dangerous to be there, were 3 amber orbs, one on top and 2 closely aligned underneath. And it was like, whoa. Being from a video background, I have a company since '85 that produced video and workbook curriculums on vital health issues, award-winning. My first thought was to get my video camera, but it was downstairs. And anyone that's had an experience like this will tell you, you don't want to move. You don't know how long it's So I tried to take in everything mentally. I mean, like, I still have such a mental picture, the size, the shape, the color. They were about 3 to 6 feet each, depending on how close they were, and they were pretty close. They were oval shape, and I've said that from the very beginning, like an egg on its side, oval shape, which is interesting because the Navy Nimitz pilots have come forward with video of the Tic Tac, they call it, oval-shaped UFOs. Now, I don't know if that's connected in any way, but they were oval-shaped, and I call them an orb because the light did not extend outside the edge. It was self-contained and a very soothing amber color, which is interesting, not a yellow, not an orange, but amber. And people worldwide will describe these things as amber for some reason, but no glare at all. All the other lights, I noticed immediately, all the other lights out there, house lights, street lights, car lights, glared. These did not. They were very soothing, very mesmerizing. And I thought, if I don't get a picture of this, no one's going to believe it. And I collect sunsets. In fact, there are 2 sunsets at the bottom of the photo page, taken a month apart. And the same giant rod-shaped object is in the same exact place in both pictures a month apart. I did not see it while I was taking the sunset pictures, but they're in the negative. That's the beauty of my pictures. No one else has 35 millimeter photographs of these UAP, unexplained aerial phenomena, that we know of so far. But at any rate, I run to the closet to grab my Instamatic camera, and my husband calls me back. He says, "Get over here quick. One of them is disappearing." And as we both watched in awe, the top orb, and again, it was one on top and 2 closely aligned underneath like a pyramid, the top orb started to shrink very, very slowly, mechanically, as if there was an intelligent presence behind it. That's all I can say. I mean, it was just incredible to experience and watch this, like almost like a dimmer switch. I mean, you can't describe it in logical terms, till it was pea-sized and then disappeared. But it felt like it was still there. Where did it go? I immediately stepped on our balcony, which is a sliding glass door perpendicular to that big window, and took a picture of the 2 lower orbs. If you want to go to the next picture.
Sure.
There you go.
Yeah.
On the
There's
bottom,
the
left
orbs.
there, bottom, you see the 2 orbs. Okay, right there. Yes, thank you. And immediately noticed an eerie silence, as if time had stopped. It was just bizarre. And as intently as I was watching these 2 lower orbs, and I did not share this with a soul until 2 years later after the mass sighting to the investigators at Village Labs, as intently as I was watching these 2 lower orbs, it felt like something was watching me. It just did. And going through my mind, I was thinking, who are you? What are you? Do you know that I'm here? I'd love to meet you. The next thing I remember, if we can go to the next picture.
Ooh, yeah, they moved all the way over.
Well, we're going to get to that, because the next thing I remember, the left bottom orb started to shrink, just like the top one did. And something told me to take a picture, and I snapped a picture of that. That picture was the only one that turned out at the time. But for me, it was miraculous, because I had a cheap Canon Instamatic camera. I caught one of these orbs half disappeared and one's still there. Wow. But I didn't know who to show it to. And it wasn't until after the mass sighting that I actually shared it. I knew not, well, actually, it was right before. I'll tell you that story if you want to hear it. Go ahead. Do you have a question?
Yeah, please tell it.
No, you're good? Okay. So meanwhile, 2 years passed. And I have to admit, when we would go up in the bedroom, I would look out to see if I saw these orbs again. Never saw anything similar, but I'm going to tell you a story before I get to 2 months before the mass sighting about, and I hope we have enough time, but I wanted to share this because this really hasn't gotten out there yet. In fact, it took me till the 2010 version, the book's in its 4th print, till the 2nd version, where I felt brave enough to share this data, because I still can't wrap my head around it, but it is what it is. And unfortunately, Dr. Bruce Maccabee has passed. He just passed recently. But if you watch our documentary, there's another sighting in 1998, a year after the mass sighting. It was miraculous. First time they came back after the mass sighting through a fog, straight lines, mirror images. The final thing was a giant pyramid of 3 lights. And I had alerted Village Labs by then because I saw them two days before then, and I already met with the University of Arizona Optical Science Department, and they said I got how to get better equipment. And I thought they came back, but they were muted through a fog. And lo and behold, we had 4 people that had captured this incredibly 20-minute, 40-mile wide array. I mean, it was like Close Encounters with them popping up. It was just amazing. And I finally got in contact with Dr. Bruce Maccabee. I figured, hey, we have 4 videos that are taken at the same time, unlike March the 13th during the mass sighting, because there were a handful of videos. But not only do they look different, but they were taken at different times. Okay,
Right.
mine and another one that's an Arrowhead was taken before 10 o'clock. There are 2 boomerangs, which have been under fire for being flares. We'll get to that, which were taken after 10 o'clock. So this was the first opportunity that we had 4 people, north, south, east, and west, coincidentally, that had taken the same video. So I get into contact with Dr. Bruce Maccabee. I asked him if he could please triangulate. In the meantime, as an afterthought, I took the first picture. If we want to go back to that for a sec.
Sure thing.
Sorry, Bob.
You're fine.
The picture, that's right. I sent the first picture and the last picture, those 2 pictures. And by the way, on that last picture, the negative next to that picture, the only thing in that picture are the 2 unknowns. There's no skyline, no house, nothing except the 2 unknowns. That's pretty weird. But anyway.
That's weird.
Well, it gets weirder. So I sent him the first and the last picture as an afterthought. And a couple of weeks later, he gives me a call. He says, Dr. Lynn, he said, you told me that sighting in 95 that your husband and you saw was only a couple minutes long. I said, right. He said, are you sure? I said, that's what I remember. He said, you have to corroborate it with your husband. As wondrous and amazing as it was for me, my husband was inside while I was taking pictures outside. He wouldn't talk about it. Everybody, comes from a different background, different upbringing, different belief system. Some people can't deal with this topic. Some people don't want to, and that's okay. Right. Everyone in their own time. But now there's data if you care to look at it. But he wouldn't talk about it. And I told him that. He said, you've got to corroborate that you saw the same thing. So I sat my husband down. I said, we don't have to talk about the sighting in 95. Just do you remember how long it lasted? He said, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 minutes tops. I go back to Dr. Maccabee. He said, that's impossible. I said, what do you mean? He said, look at the skyline. Now, first of all, if you see that arrow on top there, he was the first one to notice that there were the same exact phenomena in a line. Those lights in a line were there 2 months before the mass sighting, which we're going to get to, and during the mass sighting. And actually, they've been there subsequently. But the important thing is they were there in 95 when we saw the close sighting. And in fact, during the mass sighting, and I don't know if this is what happened, there were orbs that detached from the main object during the mass sighting. There are people that reported this, went out into the environment and redocked with it later. What? I don't know. Is that what happened here? I don't know. But at any rate, why would they be outside our bedroom window? I mean, the whole thing is kind of bizarre. But, okay. So he says to me, the same phenomena is disappearing. If you go to the next picture, in the background, while the close orbs, now there's 2 back there instead of 4, right? Okay, yep. You're going to like this, Bob. And he also noticed that the 2 orbs moved, as you noticed, from the left side of those skylights to the right side of the skylights. He says, but that's not the most significant thing. I said, what do you mean? He said, look at the skyline. And if you go back for a second, you'll see there's many lights on. And we're not just talking single lights, we're talking groups of lights that are on in the first picture. And now go to the next picture that are off.
Oh, they're off.
He did a meticulous study. And if we go to, I think it's the next picture there. Yeah, if you go to the next picture, he took both of these and he did it again. Now, this was in 1999, okay, 1998, actually. And he did it again a few years ago for National Geographic with better equipment, and saw that there were many lights on in the first picture that were off in the last picture, and the lines there indicate the groups of lights, okay? So he says to me, can I present this case at the upcoming MUFON, Mutual UFO Network, International Symposium in Washington, D.C. in 1999. I said, Dr. Maccabee, this is your baby. I would have never noticed this data. You know, do whatever you want to do with it. Just leave my name out of it. And I have to tell you, I mean, I'm so lucky that the handful of people that were analyzing my data, the photographic data at the Brooks Institute of Photography, at the U of A, at other places, including Dr. Bruce Maccabee, really kept my name anonymous. They used to call the person with the pictures Dr. X. Okay. At any rate, he presented this case in 1999 as the first, and as far as we know, the only authenticated photographic evidence of missing time.
Yep,
What?
So I want to
absolutely.
put that
I mean,
out there. And
that
yeah,
must have been hours between the first one and the second.
exactly. He said it wasn't just minutes. The lights, he had me do an experiment. He had me go out on the balcony. I'm glad you brought that up, Bob, because he had me go out on the balcony. And he was really meticulous with this. He had me shoot the skyline. Now, mind you, it's 3 years later, but this is 98. But he had me shoot the skyline one night every hour, the next night every half hour. I actually did it another night every 15 minutes to see when these groups of lights would go out. The first groups of lights went out at 9 o'clock. Now, I usually take a bath between 7 and 8. So let's be conservative and say that it was 8 o'clock when I first took the pictures. The groups of lights started going out at 9. The last picture is indicative of 10:30, 11 o'clock. So we're talking hours in between the first and the last pictures, not just minutes, as
Yeah,
we remember.
most of those lights are on timers, and they probably hadn't changed the timer in a few minutes. So they were on timers. And you could have gone and asked them what the timer was set for when they went out. I bet he did. He's meticulous.
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, I mean, it was amazing. So if you want to go to the next one, that was his conclusion. Just getting over the flu, so I apologize for that.
Fine.
You're fine. Don't worry
Okay.
about it.
Get some water real quick.
Yeah,
Anyway,
take your time and get some water if you want to.
I'm good.
Okay.
If we fast forward to 2 years before the 2 years before the mass sighting, and never seeing anything remotely like these lights. I'm lying in bed. This is January 23rd, I believe. And I notice while I'm lying in bed out of the big window, 3 huge amber orbs at a distance. And they're huge. And they're in an equidistant line formation. And I'm watching and I'm thinking, now, wait a minute. They're amber. They're in a formation. They're hovering for minutes. And they seem to implode from right to left slowly. And they were gone. Mentioned it to my husband. He said, do I still have to go to work tomorrow? I mean, he didn't want to hear about it. The next night, he was in a medical board meeting. And this is where it really gets interesting because I come upstairs. And again, once we get into the bedroom, if there's anything out there happening, it catches our eye. But I notice now the 3 orbs are far south near the airport in an equidistant line. Again, the same thing. So I run downstairs, I grab my video camera, I get outside. I got about 18 seconds. The battery goes dead and it was charged. Run in, yeah, hook up the battery, go outside, they're gone. This is about 8 o'clock. About 8:30, my husband comes up our drive and we're really steep and he finally gets up there. And I go outside. I said, honey, remember I told you about the 3 amber orbs in a row last night far west? Well, about a half an hour ago, they were right in front of South Mountain. As I'm pointing, let me get it like this. I'm pointing to them. They reappear in the same spot. And it was like, whoa, I get a picture of this. And again, I don't believe in coincidence because on video, it doesn't do the lights justice. They're much smaller. They're white. They flicker. But 35 millimeter, they're in the negative. They can't be fudged or manipulated. I grab my 35 millimeter. I get out on the balcony. As I'm ready to shoot the 3, suddenly 6 lights across, massive span, over a mile wide, pop up of equidistant lights in a row over the 3. And it was so unnerving. If you go to the next picture, you can see that it is actually wavy because I was shaking. Okay. Not having an explanation, not that they were scary. It's just like, whoa, this is so massive. And not having an explanation for 95, it was like, what is this? A mothership or a fleet or whatever? But thank goodness I kept my wits about me and I kept clicking away. The second picture, next picture,
Oh, there you go.
to me is a smoking gun, guys, because it looks like there's a V of 5 lights, right? And 2 underneath. Hundreds of people 2 months later. Now, keep in mind, this is January 97. 2 months later, March 13th, 1997, hundreds of people would describe what they were seeing as 5 lights in a V formation with 2 trailing lights.
I've seen
Is that what this picture represents? Okay.
Yep.
To me, this is amazing. They were there 2 months before the mass sighting. Next picture, as I kept shooting, the bottom orb started disappearing and the top formation seemed to turn into a V. And the last picture, which is next,
Look at that.
was analyzed, and you can see that every other one is bigger than the one in between. So
Yeah.
are we looking at a V where the bigger orbs are the closer arm and the littler orbs are the further away arm, whether it's a force field holding them together? And this is a long story, so I won't get into the whole story, but the
Go
night
for it.
before I had rushed in as the lights were disappearing and called the Arizona Republic to report the lights and have them take a picture of it and tell me what it was. And by the time I finished my sentence, they were gone. Did not sleep well that night. First call I made the next morning was to the Arizona Republic. And I said, did anybody call last night to report strange lights in front of South Mountain? And I knew they were in front of South Mountain because there were red blinking lights on top of the mountain to alert aircraft coming into Sky Harbor, which is just in front of South Mountain, that there is a mountain there, right? And it was lower than that. So she gets off, she gets right back on. She said, nope, nobody called. Well, I know I called. So I said, well, I'm just trying to find out. I'm sure there's a logical explanation. Just trying to find out what it was. She says, well, sometimes, and we have several Army bases here, military bases. Sometimes they send out experimental military scheduled things that they don't tell the public about. Maybe it was that. I said, you know what? I'm going to call Luke Air Force Base. And this wasn't like me, to be honest, but I wanted to find out what was going on. So I call Luke Air Force Base. I try to be very professional. I said, my husband and I are both physicians. We live mountainside in Paradise Valley. Last night, there were strange lights in front of South Mountain. Do you have any idea what they might have been? And from the get-go, she had an attitude. And she said, well, they didn't come into Luke Air Force Base, and they didn't come out from here, so we had nothing to do with it. I said, be that as it may, we did see something. My husband and I saw the same thing, just trying to find out what's going on. She said, well, you said it was near the airport. Why don't you call them? Okay. So now it was a mission. So I called the FAA and I get them on the phone, get the operator, very nice. And I tell her the same thing. And she says, you know what? Let me ask the air traffic controllers if they saw anything. There's a couple of them that were on last night that are here this morning. I said, great. Kept me hanging, finally came back on. She said, actually, one of them is here from last night, and they did see something strange over the tarmac, okay, over Class B restricted airspace. I said, oh, could I please speak to one of them? It seemed forever. But finally, a gentleman gets on the phone. And I met him subsequently. We had a briefing at Village Labs, and he's a really low-key guy. He was more excited than me. He said, did you see this excited? You could distance from each other, hovering in a formation last night about 8:30. I said, yes, that's why I'm calling. He said, well, actually, there were 3 at 8 o'clock. I said, I saw them too. He said, when they popped up at 8 o'clock, they looked on radar, didn't show up on radar. And they got nervous because it's Class B restricted airspace is a 30-mile radius around the center of the airport. Anyone that comes into that radius must call into the tower, and no one did. So they got nervous. And then when the 6 popped up at 8:30, it was like, are you kidding me? I mean, it was over a mile wide. And what he described were 6 points of light, totally equidistant from each other, massive span, over a mile wide, that seemed to be attached to something. but they couldn't quite see what these lights were attached to, which you would hear again, by hundreds, if not thousands of people 2 months later. And he said he was a meteorologist, by the way, which was really lucky, because he said the whole thing turned as a unit. It was about 1,000 feet altitude over the tarmac, and then elevated slowly. And he said in synchrony moved behind South Mountain. So I said, so what was it? And there was silence. And then he said, beats me. I said, you're an air traffic controller. You're supposed to know what's in our airspace. He said that this whole group of, we're talking professional sky watchers, rolled out every conventional aircraft, balloons, shining lanterns, flares, even skydivers with lights. They rolled out everything they could. It were true unknowns. We kept in contact up until and including March 13th, which for me was another night. And again, I actually saw, and by then I had a plethora of video and so forth. The week before, another little coincidence, call it a coincidence, my husband was getting a little annoyed with me every time I saw these lights. I felt as a scientist, you know what that's like, Bob, right? I felt as a scientist compelled to document these on film. I would say, hold that thought and run outside and take pictures of these things, thank goodness. And it was getting a little ridiculous. So I figured, you know what? There must be a logical explanation. Let me search this out. Now, this is how close I was to the topic. I knew nothing about this topic. A friend of a friend had a neighbor who had a friend who knew the past president of MUFON, which I had never heard of before, Mutual UFO Network. So I contacted him. I said, I have a picture from 2 years ago that I would like someone of credence to take a look at. And I'm seeing these orbs popping up every night in different formations. He had not heard about it, but there were other people that were seeing it and photographing it along with myself. In fact, one of them, Steve Blonder, called MUFON up to his balcony the night of the mass sighting, and they caught this arrowhead of 5 lights. It's an amazing video. I mean, you can see these lights are attached to something or have a force field holding them in rock solid formation. At any rate, he refers me to a field investigator for the following Wednesday, who calls me on Tuesday to say the then state director of MUFON wanted to be there. His mom had passed on Saturday. Could we postpone? And I was really busy. I had my company. I had 2 little kids at the time, 2 little boys. The only window of opportunity I had for another 2-3 weeks was Friday morning at 10 o'clock. He said, great. I knock on his door. He opens the door. He says, did you see the mass sighting last night? I said, well, I saw something similar that I told you about 2 months ago. In fact, that I saw 2 months ago. In fact, I called the air traffic controllers that I've been communicating with this morning, and they confirmed that it was the same exact phenomena over the same exact location, 1,000 feet altitude over Class B restricted airspace, and that a couple of pilots called in. A commercial pilot called to say, what the hell are these lights over me? I mean, we're talking over the tarmac, okay? And a private pilot. Did not mention who that private pilot was, but we'll get to that a little later because he did come forward in 2017, finally. Now we're talking 1998 here. Good. 1997, excuse me, 1997. And he said NBC was coming to interview him in a half an hour. I said, whoa. I said, I used to do health reporting for NBC in the early 80s. Actually, I started in Philadelphia in 76, and a syndication grew out of that of health tips that was showing here when we moved here in Phoenix in 1980 at CBS. And then NBC here asked me to start a health program for them in the early 80s. I said, someone might recognize me. This isn't about me. This is about the data. And I don't know what we're dealing with here. I don't know if it's a hoax or military or whatever, but it's not about me. Take a copy of the video, show it to whoever. I'm out of here. I go home, and the first news started at 4 o'clock, the afternoon news. I didn't even know if they were going to cover it. I had no idea what was going on. I had no idea that thousands of people would see what I had been seeing that night. Breaking news, my video on every news station. It was really exciting. I think if we go to the next clip there, next slide.
Oh, that's nice.
Actually a capture of what I videotaped off of the video itself. And you can see they're white, because in video they look white and flicker and whatever. They're much smaller than in real life. But that's a capture from my video. And my video was on every news station. And it was like, whoa, what is going on here? By the 10 o'clock news, there were a couple of other videos that came forward, the arrowhead, the boomerang, and for the first time, I'm learning that thousands of people statewide. I had no idea it was even more far reaching than that, because it wasn't just in Arizona. It was actually in at least 4 states, starting at 3 p.m. in the afternoon. Daylight sightings, 5:30 in New Mexico by Native Americans, 7 o'clock hour by for several hours in California, and then in Nevada, was seen, one of these craft was seen covering Las Vegas by 2 different commercial pilots. And then at 3 a.m., people don't know this, at 3 a.m., there was a call, and we have some of the recording, very professionally done, to Peter Davenport, the head of the National UFO Reporting Center in Seattle, Washington, from an alleged crewman from Luke Air Force Base, to report that at 8:30 that night, one of these massive over mile wide craft was covering 7th Avenue and Indian School, was hovering there. And military jets were sent out. And we have civilians that saw this happening with afterburners to intercept and get gun camera film. I haven't seen it. I heard they got it, but nonetheless, as they got close, the light started to dim. And as they got closer, like a half mile out, the entire thing blinked out and disappeared. Freaking out, one of the pilots that this alleged crewman said he helped out of his aircraft because he was so shaken up by it. Civilians saw and reported that after the military left, that the craft reappeared, the UAP reappeared and continued on its way slowly over South Mountain. Okay, so a lot was happening. Okay, on March 13th, 1997. Next slide, please. Okay, this is just a picture, and this is on the GAP page, GAP, Geospatial Animation Project. There's the link there, Phoenix Lights Network website, thephoenixlights.net, and go to the GAP page. You'll see the beautiful illustrations and animations by Larry Lowe. We also lost him this past year. That between just 8 and 9 p.m., all these activities are going on with these phenomena, these orb formations. People were seeing craft. And I just want to show you quickly for time, the 10 different crafts, and they look very different. Again, was it one craft that could morph into looking different? The perspective from where the person was standing, or a parade. And ultimately, after 12 years of meticulously studying the data, that was what was concluded. But let's run through real quick the different craft for you, so you can see, and you can go on the GAP page. If you go to the next page.
Do you want to make it bigger or no?
There we go.
We're good.
Okay, there we go. Okay, this is what most people saw, the V shape with 5 lights. We go to the next one, and I'm just going to run through these quickly for you.
There it is.
The next one, there was like a canopy on the first one. This didn't have the canopy, and this one really got me when I saw it. And I didn't see it until they finished the study 12 years later. In the meantime, I had found a video from St. Petersburg, Russia, that showed 3 lights. You can see every light there. I don't know if you can see it on here. Every light is actually made up of 3 lights. And there is a video from St. Petersburg, Russia, mass sighting 1 month before ours, February 19th, 1997, that a civilian took of the same exact object. It shows the lights. Every light is 3 lights. And there were, again, there were air traffic controllers there at their airport that saw these craft right over the tarmac. Next one, please. Okay, here again, this is a little different. People were seeing these lights on the side of a craft. Next one. Okay, that's a now we're seeing a triangle with 3 lights in front, which could be what I captured, and that was near Casa Grande. That's about an hour out of Phoenix on the way to Tucson, south. Go ahead. Next one. Now I didn't include all the 10, but I just want to show you the difference. There were actually pilots, pilot and his son, very credible, that saw a disc-shaped object after midnight. And if we can go to the next one.
A mile wide that thing is.
Oh, at least. Well, we're talking a mile to 2 mile wide. Now, interestingly, there was no investigation. There was no explanation for months. I mean, the way the story unfolds in itself, which I'm going to try to run through quickly for you guys, because your audience probably never heard any of this. There was nothing until Frances Barwood in May. Okay, now this is a few months later. Innocently, because she had so many calls. She didn't see it herself, but she had so many calls from her constituents, asked for an investigation during a council meeting, and she was plastered to the wall by the media. I mean, the ridicule and the snickering and the jokes and the discrediting that was going on if witnesses came forward was really scary. I was so happy to stay anonymous. And she really, I mean, she was so brave to this day. I mean, she is one of the bravest people I've ever met because she didn't give up. Okay. Next picture, please.
Yeah, she got run off the council, didn't she?
Oh, yeah. They went crazy. Okay. Now, again, this is significant because it wasn't until June 18th. Now, mind you, they really kept a lid on it. Okay. In fact, when any of the military or government officials were asked, what happened March 13th? This is, we're talking thousands of people. It was rooftop level, very, very slowly.
Right.
It's totally silent. Some people saw it take off at blink speed without even dispersing the air. I mean, just miraculous technology. Other people, and if you look on the Gap page, you'll see one of the craft split in two and then shot straight up. I mean, we're talking, incredible technology to be sure. And yet there was no investigation, no explanation. So anyway, on June 18th, there was a front page USA Today article. For the first time, people worldwide were hearing, outside of Arizona, we're hearing about the Phoenix Lights. And we were deluged. We didn't have social media at the time, like Facebook or any other social media. It went viral overnight. By the next morning, we were deluged by media from all over the world. And once they talked to the witnesses, their stories were so heartfelt and so detailed that they too were asking, why isn't there an investigation? Why isn't there an explanation? Interestingly, the very next day, after nothing, we get an announcement, a public announcement, that then former Governor Fife Symington was calling an unscheduled press conference for that afternoon, June 19th, the day after the front page USA Today article, to divulge the culprit of the lights over Phoenix. And people took it seriously until, go to the next slide, please.
Who can forget this?
Okay. He comes marching out, one of his aides, with a giant alien head costume and made a mockery of the whole thing, which was really disconcerting for the witnesses. I have to tell you, I mean, he, pulling this for whatever reason was not a joke to the people that actually saw the mass sighting UAP, especially parents that were with children. They were with children that saw something 2 and 3 malls wide, and he's making a joke out of it. Right. So that wasn't that wasn't funny. And for me, that really set me on a journey too, because here I had been documenting. I mean, I pushed my whole medical career aside for 7 years. I really did. 4 years of which, 4.5 years, I kept a journal of everything, of media reports, of witness interviews. I mean, everything, the history of these phenomena, which has been happening since human documentation began. I had no idea. Other countries are much more open to these phenomena as being otherworldly. And here, he's making a joke out of it. And at this point, I started calling every military base to find out what they knew. And I have several conversations in the book, and I tried to find as high up as I could. They were more interested in meeting with me and seeing what I documented on film than giving an explanation. They were just as curious. In fact, one of them said, which really took me aback, that the only one that knows who did this is God and whoever did this. And it's like, really? That was his answer. If we go to the next slide.
Well, I wanted to make one point. And
I'm sorry.
I wanted to make one point. He was a witness to the mass sighting.
Well, wait a minute. Getting ahead of me. After the USA Today article, I mean, there was a plethora of TV shows, even Larry King, and there's my video on Larry King, and covering it. I mean, the media, it really went viral. Okay, by the next morning, actually, the every morning national show was talking about it. And Dan Rather and Peter Jennings, I mean, it was really amazing. And then, next one, please. A month later, after calling the military, and we have several military bases statewide, I get a call from one of the heads of PR at the Air National Guard, and she says, "Oh, Dr. Lynn, I think we know what those lights were back in March." And I was thrilled. Again, I was looking for any logical explanation. And she says, "Do you believe in all these months, nobody ever looked at the log for visiting Air National Guard? And the Maryland Air National Guard was in town sending off military illumination flares in Operation Snowbird." I use air quotes again, because in Arizona, we think that, snowbirds are people coming from out of town. But in military terms, it means diversionary tactical maneuvers. So they may have been sending off flares, but that certainly isn't what thousands of people saw statewide and beyond. And I said to her, "Now, wait a minute," because I had educated myself to everything, including military illumination flares at that point. I said, "You're trying to tell me that military illumination flares that are dropped from an aircraft on a parachute that have huge smoke trails that are illuminated by the flare itself and illuminate the area around it. That's why they're used, so that missiles will go to them as heat seeking rather than the aircraft. Traverse the entire state in a rock solid, equidistantly spaced, mile wide V for hours." And she says, I have a call coming in. I'll get back to you. Well, I'm still waiting for that call. In the meantime, this illustrates illustration illustrates the top level are the true unknowns. And you can see on the bottom, I mean, the difference is so significant. I mean, we're talking
different color.
It isn't even close. Okay.
Different
Plus,
color.
there's not one person that I've met yet that describes what flares do. Nobody has described that. So I don't know if they sent off flares, but I'm open. Okay. But it certainly isn't what we saw. Okay. Fast forward 3 years later. The vice mayor of Phoenix, Frances Barwood, councilwoman as well, was running for Secretary of State to get answers for the lights over Phoenix, and brilliantly was asking for a reenactment. Again, I'm open. I'm a show me person. If the military did it, hey, so be it. But shame on them for going right over people's heads and then denying it for months. But nonetheless, show me. Well, we get a public announcement, and this is 3 years later, right before the third anniversary in 2000, in March 7th, big time announcement that 3 Air National Guards were coming into town to show everyone the Phoenix lights. And I have to tell you, everybody was ready with their camera. Okay. Talk about a joke. Not only, and we can't play it today, but there is a news report. If you go on the news page on the Phoenix Lights Network website and scroll down to about the middle, And there's so much stuff on the Phoenix Lights Network website. I wanted people to be able to go there and enjoy and explore and consider. But on the news page, there is a block that says AZ Family, and they were there taking video that night. And you can see the military tried to make a triangle. It was upside, and this is 3 Air National Guards trying to do this, right? They made a triangle that was upside down. It fell apart immediately. One of the flares just fizzled out. They had huge smoke trails. I mean, exactly what flares do. To date, the Phoenix Lights have never been explained or recreated, but they continue to appear worldwide. We can go to the next slide, please. Okay. Now, talking about our former governor, right after the 10th anniversary, for whatever reason, and by then I had come forward in 2004, and the Phoenix Lights had really started momentum as a true unknown mass sighting, and was acknowledged worldwide by that time. Maybe that helped him or whatever, but right after the 10th anniversary, former Governor Fife Simon, who had mocked the sighting in 97, came forward to disclose that he actually witnessed one of these mile-wide craft. And in his estimation as an awarded military pilot, it definitely wasn't flares, it was a craft. And he used the same word, which is interesting, that countries use worldwide as being, that are much more open to these phenomena, as being otherworldly. He used that word. If we want to go to the next slide, he actually said it in several times, that, you know, this phenomena was otherworldly. And that is a really good word, because people have asked me time and time again, who's behind this? I wish I knew.
Right.
I don't know who's behind it. I don't know what they are, but I know that they are. And again, that it's time we get this out in the open so we can address it and accept it and study it. And that's why, you know, I ultimately came forward in 2004 after 7 years of anonymity. Next picture, please. Okay, here's the geospatial animation project. I really urge people to take a look at it. It is so amazingly illustrated, and this is a video of what Symington saw traversing very, very slowly. So please join us at the Phoenix Lights Network website, thephoenixlights.net, and take a peek at the GAP page. Next, please. Okay. Interestingly, the pilot who was reporting on close approach to Sky Harbor Airport while I was filming it during the mass sighting, which is kind of cool, came forward in 2017, right after the front page Pentagon study was divulged by Harry Reid, $22 million study of UFOs. And he came forward. There is also a UK interview on the website. You can look on the, I think it's on the home page and the news page if you scroll down, that is really interesting, because not only did this private pilot come forward, it was none other than Kurt Russell, the actor, which is amazing. He said that he was coming home and opened the door, and Goldie Hawn, they were living together, was watching a UFO show about the Phoenix Lights, and they mentioned that pilot saw it over the tarmac, and he said, "Whoa!" It was like a Richard Dreyfuss moment from Close Encounters. He remembered it. Interestingly, he was flying in his private plane with his son Oliver, and who is his adopted son, and as they were coming in, Oliver noticed it. Now he was, you know, a little more of an adult, but it's interesting that children were the first to notice this giant V coming towards them and alerted their parents. And jumping up and down, because we are so inundated with threat and harm. about these things that, and the movie Independence Day was popular 6 months before the mass sighting. So children that would see this massive V coming towards them were jumping up and down, Independence Day, Independence Day. But as it came closer, and this is a very important point of the Phoenix Lights, calmness came over everyone, adults and children alike, that when it passed, the kids wanted their parents to chase after it or get in the car and drive with it. I mean, it's amazing in real time how it affected people, and in long term, people were changed forever. If we have any time, I'll get into that. Half the book is about that, and our study is about that. But at any rate, he said that when he saw this TV program, it like clicked a thing in his head because they hadn't talked about it. Neither of them mentioned it. And that happened to other people as well. For 2 years, he never talked about it with Oliver. And there are other people, including Dr. Brad Evans, who saw one of these craft right above their car coming up from Tucson to Phoenix, who's working with me on the study. And they didn't talk about it either. And they were given telepathic messages. His wife was given a telepathic message, as were others, not to be afraid, not to worry. They weren't here to harm us. Interesting. At any rate, he goes to his log and looks at it, and indeed, it was him that called in to the tower to report this V of light. So it's really interesting that he happened to be reporting it while I was filming it, which is kind of cool. Next slide, please.
Yeah, I just thought that was so amazing that he was it.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
it's just amazing.
Yep, absolutely. There is so much more to this story. I wish we had more time, and maybe we can do it another time. But half the book is about the Phoenix Lights. I wanted to show how the story unfolded, as we talked about today, but there's a lot more to this story. It is so intriguing, and the walls that I came up against and all that. But the latest edition of the book, the fourth edition of the book, and I recommend the ebook highly because it has color pictures and live links. I'm an educator and wanted people to be able to go, if they wanted to look at something else that piqued their interest. But half the book is about how the Phoenix Lights affected the witness in real time and long term. In fact, there were a number of witnesses who had had near-death experiences as children that was reawakened by the mass sighting. And that really hit me hard because I did too. And I lay it all out there. My near-death experience, my personal experience, which may have set the stage for what's happening now. People can decide for themselves. But nonetheless, I found it so intriguing. Again, it's not about me, it's about the data. And I thought, could there possibly be a connection between all unexplained phenomena, whether it's near-death experience, out-of-body experience, unexplained aerial phenomena that have a mystical light associated with the experience? And lo and behold, when I started looking, just like the UFO, I found such credible data that opened up a whole new world. We're talking Dr. John Mack at Harvard was studying the connection. Dr. Bruce Grayson, who's a near-death experience author, very famous, and others at university level. In fact, the Omega Project, which is like this thick, at the University of Connecticut, Dr. Kenneth Ring, his whole book is about the connection between all unexplained phenomena. And I started calling them an UP, unexplained phenomena, because it is an up. And I lay it out very simply in the book. Not only is the experience, whatever the up experience is, very similar. It's really mind-boggling when you look at the data. But the after effect, the awakening, the enlightenment that happens when a person has a true up experience is mind-boggling, life-changing. It wakes people up. And the connectedness to the universe and to the earth and to ourselves is felt for the first time by people who have had a true up experience. So, the book is packed with so much information, including that and the history of the phenomena, and also quotes from presidents to scientists and whatever. It's really amazing. So I hope people will pick it up. It's people said it's a very fast read, and they can't put it down. In fact, I've had a lot of wives tell me that they get the book and the husband sees it and said, "Oh, geez, that's UFO stuff." And then they come home from shopping and this husband's reading it and won't give it back. That has happened quite a few times. The next slide, please. I
I
went
just
back to
wanted, I
work
just, I just
in
wanted to say
Arizona.
that, I just wanted to say
Okay,
that before you got through telling the story about the book, I already had it in my Kindle.
cool, cool. Thank you. Um, when I finished the 750-page journal, and I didn't know what to do with it. I really didn't want to come forward. And our younger son is a neurologist now. I had to go back to work to help put him through medical school as chief clinical consultant at the Wellness and Imaging Center, the heart test at the world famous Arizona Heart Institute. And behind closed doors, I would close my door to my little office and start paring down the book to the most credible data that I found, and was really nervous to come forward. I did not want to come forward. Our son, the neurologist, was the only one who actually read my 750-page journal because I didn't know what to do. And our older son, who's an attorney, said, "Mom, they're going to come forward and find out it's military. You better not come forward." But Dan read the 750-page journal and he looked at me and said, "Mom, you have to do this. This is too important not to share. And everything you've done has led up to this," which was kind of from the mouth of babes. I've been doing, medical reporting and all this stuff for since 1976. So, it's a lot of years. So I kind of knew what to put together if I decided to come forward. And truthfully, I could not stick it in a drawer. I really felt obliged as an educator to divulge this vital issue and let people decide for themselves. And when I finally did come forward with the book, I could not believe how many nurses and doctors pulled me aside and told me their stories. And we're so thrilled that someone of credence, and that's the most important part. If I can be a credible voice so people actually look at the data, then I've done my job. And the more credible people that come forward, like the governor or Kurt Russell and others, in fact, Alice Cooper came forward a few years ago, and we have a remote interview with him, Q&A, that we're going to be showing at our event at the Arizona Heritage Center on March the 16th. We're there from 1 to 5. It's going to be amazing because we show the documentary, which has won over a dozen International Film Festival awards. This is the latest cover. But we're so proud that it has been so well received by the film community as well as the UFO community. And we have the speakers and Q&A, and people don't want to leave. So I hope anyone in the neighborhood will please join us and get your tickets now because it sells out every year. There's limited seating. We only have the one theater. We've been doing it at the Scottsdale Harkin Shea Theater since 2005, and it's been spilling over into other theaters for the last couple of years. But this is at the Arizona Heritage Center at Papago Park. And if we click to the next, and by the way, the DVD can only be got, it's streaming on, if you can't come to the event, it's streaming on Amazon, and it's really inexpensive. Or if you want a DVD copy, they don't make them anymore. So I got a whole bunch of them before they stopped making them. And the bonus features are incredible. We have astronaut Edgar Mitchell is in it. And he also, in the bonus features, talks about the cover up. I don't go there in the documentary itself, but he does, as well as a 93-year young French pilot who saw what they call Foo Fighters, these same orbs that in rock solid formation around craft during World War II. Every side thought the other side had this advanced spy technology. And it wasn't until after the war that Germany and Japan and the United States, after studying them, couldn't find out who had these things. So they've been around a long time. And and so much more. We have a pilot that actually witnessed the mass sighting craft and talks about he worked with flares in Vietnam and works about why it couldn't have possibly been flares. We have a 911 police officer that was on that night, and she tells all. She got hundreds of calls where they said they didn't receive any calls. So it's really interesting that the DVD itself can be purchased through the website. There is a link that goes to PayPal, and I'll be glad to actually sign. You can also get the book through the website, sign books there, and the DVD as well. And then the next slide is my latest adventure for the trilogy. Education, as I mentioned, is my big focus for both my medical career and also the Phoenix Lights. And I've been trying, which I did with my medical career, my You Make It series, which Discovery Education was distributing for a couple decades, video and workbook curriculums. I've been working on a curriculum for schools, which is really rough to get into schools, especially with COVID happening. So I put together 160-page, it's really it's one of a kind, a graphic novel activities coloring book, The Adventures of Sue, F.O., Field Observer, and Hugh, H-U-G-H, he's a little alien, that goes through not only what happened with the Phoenix Lights, but we have iconic pictures of that were taken when the lights appeared over the Capitol in 1953. We have Foo Fighters, a picture of that. We have a plethora of iconic pictures in there, as well as 80 crop circles, people to color. And I try to pick the most ornate that couldn't have possibly been done by humans to color. And then we have activities for all ages. This is for all ages. I want parents to be able to do it. I have a black and white version for teachers so they can do it in the classroom, which teachers aren't. I worked with pilot program with kids in 4th, 5th, 6th grade to help us get this together. So I hope people check that out. That's available on Amazon. The color version that has like 10 or 12 color pictures in there, as well as the rest, and the black and white version, which is a little more inexpensive, but either one is packed with information. We have the answers as well as the word finders and crossword puzzles and all kinds of fun activities. So I hope people will check that out as well. And the next picture.
That's fantastic.
Very good idea.
Oh, sorry. You ready for the next one?
I am ready.
All right. Hang on. Go ahead. Keep going. Sorry, I bumped into something. There we go.
No, that's okay. That's okay. I think this is okay. This is our study. And again, if anybody goes to the website, Phoenix Lights Network website, the phoenixlights.net, you're seeing it right there. And on the landing page, underneath the triangle, underneath where it says enter site, then we have the link to our Phoenix Lights experiencer survey. It's really a study of the experiencers themselves. It's mind-boggling what we are getting back. That's very consistent with what we found out and what's in my book as well. But now we're really confirming it scientifically, and we're going to be releasing it soon to the public. But if the next slide, please. Wanted to really get a study out there that is not only unique, there is nothing like it, but and this is for a mass sighting. Nobody's ever done that before, to see what the after effect is in real time and long term. And it's totally anonymous. I want to make that clear. We wanted people to be able to share exactly what they experience without fear. We can't even, and I wish we could get back to these people because there's so many, there's like places where you can write a little something. There's so many fascinating stories and quotes that people shared that I wish I could get back to these people. But nonetheless, we're getting conclusions and data that just mind-boggling, and we'll be sharing that soon. And then I believe the final slide is next, because I always say keep looking up because you never know what you're going to see. And today, I really have to be clear that unlike 97, today there are so many more things in our skies that, are strange, but can be identified with drones, with satellites, Starlink. There's a lot of stuff out there now, Chinese lanterns, whatever. And that's why you had to be prudent. And I've tried to be as prudent and pragmatic as I can with the data. It's best to take pictures, 35 millimeter pictures, to be analyzed rather than digital, because the pixels break up when you try to enlarge them, and infrared if you can. But anyway, I hope that, what I shared today has enlightened your viewers out there to the inside story. There's much more to the story if you want to read the book, but there's certainly much more to the story than is being divulged out there publicly. And, I hope you enjoyed what I shared.
I just wanted to share that both Lala and I, separately and together, have seen the large orbs. My first interaction with the large orbs was when I visited Chris Bledsoe, and that totally changed my life. So she was visiting with her parents in Florida, and she had a V shape of 5 large orbs appear over her house and disappear one at a time. And after that, her father went into the house, pretended like he didn't see him. And after that, she had missing time that lasted over an hour.
There you go.
Yeah,
there you go. I'm
kind
sure,
of thing, this kind of thing is everywhere.
Well, yes, it is worldwide. And again, you brought up such a great point, is that once people have a true unknown, a true up experience, it changes your life forever. And again, there are people that are closed off, that can't deal with it or don't want to deal with it, and that's okay. That's okay. Everyone in their own time. But now, the data is out there. That's why I had to come forward to at least share what happened with the Phoenix Lights and how the story unfolded and the rest of the data, so people can decide for themselves.
I really needed you to come on here because, like you said, I had an experience and they look just like it was 5, I call them orange, but you were right with the amber. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then they slowly disappeared. They got smaller, disappeared, right? I mean, they could have touched my parents' house, and they were big. And it wasn't scary. Like, I'm scared easily. I have anxiety, but I was calm. And it happened right before right before I lost my parents and boyfriend. So I think they were there saying, we're with you, it's okay. And it was nice. I think a lot of people need to hear this and really look into this, because a lot of people try to scare others with what we see, but it's not really scary. They're there for a purpose, And I want to know what the purpose is, just like everybody else. This is really, really cool.
I just wanted to say, I want to add, like you and others have repeatedly said, I've heard this story many times. After my set of experiences, my memories from childhood on began to return. It was like the switch was turned on a little bit at a time till I remember. And not only that, I had witnesses, etc., that confirmed strange experiences, missing time, and other things that I had completely forgotten. These are my family members that were telling me that stuff happened. Lynn,
very cool. Very cool.
Can't thank you enough for coming on. This was amazing. Please come again, and please tell us
I'd love to.
Any parting messages you have for our audience.
Well, not only keep looking up, watch where you're walking. Keep looking up. But as you said, Lala, and I can't stress this enough. I mean, that's one of the reasons I came forward, is that we're so inundated with the fear factor, and there just isn't any data that verifies that. In fact, another experience that happened with me real quick is that our dog we just put our dog down that morning, and Dan was here with one of his medical classes for the next day, and he was studying about 11:30 at night. And this picture is on the website photo page. And we stepped out on the balcony. My husband was asleep already. And we were both crying in each other's arms because he had grown up with Godiva, like the chocolates. She was so sweet. And we were devastated that we had to put her down. And suddenly Dan says, "Look, Mom." And we look up, and in the distance, there were 3 lights in a giant V. It's on the photo page. And he whispers in my ear, "Mom, they're here to comfort you." And I mean, I could cry, almost cry now. I mean, it was really, for whatever reason they're here, and for whatever reason they did it on March 13th. And that's the biggest message of all. Not only did they want to wake us up to their presence in a very gentle, non-threatening way, but they wanted to wake one person at a time. That's what it seems like, to really realize that we're not alone in the universe. And I hope that today's meeting with you guys, and if people read the book or watch the documentary, they'll wake up too and realize. And you don't have to have that experience, by the way. All you need to do is study it with an open mind and an open heart to have that positive transformation. So thank you so much for letting me share. And I hope that many of your viewers have that positive transformation and educate themselves to what's really going on. So thank you for letting me share.
Thank you very much, Lynn. We beyond appreciate it. This was important for both of us.
Keep looking up.